Hey everyone. Welcome to our second live stream.
Welcome, people.
So please say hi in the chat and share where you're joining us from. Would love to know. And today I have with me Omar, who's a senior software engineer at n8n, and we'll be building a node for DeepL. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. DeepL is for those who don't know it yet, DeepL is a machine learning-based translation system. They still don't have a huge coverage for languages, but so far they've been doing so good. Like, it's a very promising tool. So n8n doesn't offer an integration for this tool yet, so why not build it live?
Awesome. Yeah. And Omar, please tell us a bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm Omar. I was born in Brazil, so I just recently moved to Berlin and joined n8n. It's been just 5 months, so I'm pretty new to the team. I moved to Berlin 4 months ago, so pretty new in town as well. I studied computer science, and I work as like a developer for actually almost 20 years, I'd say, because I started even like before joining college. So yeah, like I love programming. I'm very nerdy and geeky. I love board games, computer games, and techie stuff. So, well, yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. And what are some of your favorite games?
Board games, there's one that I really love. It's called Lords of Waterdeep. It's a strategy game like resource allocation. You have to score the most points. Oh, maybe, is that my microphone? I'm hearing some noises.
No, everything's fine.
No? Oh, okay, cool. Let's go. So it's a game where you have to select every play that you take have consequences because you have to choose what sort of resources you want to take this turn. And if you take a resource, other players cannot get it. So you have to watch your game to gather the best resources for your game and also try to harm the other players in some way. So it's a very funny way to play this game, and you have to score the most points at the end of 8 rounds. So it's pretty fun. And this is the first game I bought once I got to Germany. I had this game in Brazil previously, so I had to sell it for the moving. But then I just got here and I bought a copy because that's a really awesome game. That's the one for board games, but I also like computer games. I have been very addicted for a while to a game called Factorio. It's a game where you build a factory. The plot is that actually your spaceship crashed on an alien planet, and all you have is your pickaxe. So you have to start mining iron, copper, coal, and build a factory so you can build a spaceship and leave this planet again. But the cool thing about this game is that you have to optimize your factory. You have plenty of resource. So you have to, from iron ores, you create iron plates, and then you go to gears, and then to sticks and other things that you have to assemble. So it's like a big puzzle where you have to get things right and optimizing every little step. So those are the games I like the most, like strategy games that have like to burn your brain a little bit.
Nice. That's really cool. And speaking of n8n and the new creation of a new node, we have a couple of translation nodes already, like Google Translates. We have one for Lingua.X, both created by yours truly. So can you share some background around how and why you decided to create a node for DeepL?
Sure, like DeepL is a tool that I got to know as a friend of mine has told me, like, well, some background story. I just moved to Germany, and in Germany, we still use a lot of letters. So mail is actually really used a lot. And I always needed to write letters, and especially write good letters. They are always formal letters in a sense. So a friend of mine told me, hey, for this case, like Google Translate is awesome, but try this tool. It will surprise you. So I decided to try DeepL. They have a free trial. Like actually, you don't even need an account to do basic translations. But then like I decided to try this tool, and it seems really amazing. So, okay, it works fine. But then I saw that they don't really have a huge coverage. I think they cover like 10 or 12 languages so far. I'm not sure the name. I'm sorry. But like the tool is really promising. And then I realized that they are from Germany too. So that's even better because you can write your text in English and they can get it translated to German in a very formal aspect. So you can write the letters if you need, like get in touch with sellers from stuff because I had to furnish an apartment and buy stuff and maybe complain about about stuff not being delivered, you know. So that's why I decided to try DeepL, and it was a very positive surprise. Like it looks really good. The tool is really simple to use, but at the same time, the translations are really high quality. And I can say that because although I don't know German, I know Portuguese, and I tried those translations, and they are really awesome. So that's why I decided to try DeepL. And well, n8n doesn't have a node, so let's try building one.
That's awesome. Really cool. And you mentioned like the API provides a couple of different functionalities. So what are we
Mhm.
going to implement in the live stream today?
Sure, yeah. So their API provides actually ways to translate text. So you can send multiple sentences or just one sentence if you want, but you can translate sentences and you can also upload documents for DeepL. There's one thing actually for this document specifically. In order to apply for the German visa, they requested from me a resume in German. So guess
Hmm.
what? I used DeepL for that. So it was a way to have to quickly have a resume in German too. So their API provides those two possibilities, but for the documents, it's a little bit more complicated because you have to upload the document, you have to check if the translation has already finished, and you have to download the document after finishing. So it's a little bit more complicated and tricky. It wouldn't be like so cool to build in a live stream. So for today, we'll be building only the text translations. Maybe in the next section, we can build the documents part as well. So for now, only text translations.
Perfect. Sounds great. So
Sure.
shall we take a look at their docs quickly?
Sure. I'll be sharing my screen with you to share the docs. Let me see. Oh, sorry. Let me just share the screen so you can present it to our viewers. Okay, nice. So this is the DeepL documentations. Actually, the homepage is this page. It's in Portuguese here, so I don't think they have someone that speaks Portuguese. So probably this was translated using their machine, and I can say that this translation is really good. Like it's not strange when you read it; it really feels natural. So the main thing that we need to check is like does the authentication work? So all you have to do is you need an authentication key. That's all you need, and we have already one. We requested a staging key from them. And well, there are some limits. So we have an API key that is sandboxed, and it's allowed to do a few requests. So like character limit, I don't know how big this number is. If it's 100 million, it's just a very big number. So far we have consumed like over 600,000 characters, but we still have a long way to go. And well, when it comes to translating text, their API says you have to call the api.deepl.com/v2/translate. So this is the endpoint we will be using today. For parameters, we have to send a text. This is the required information. It's UTF encoded string. You can tell DeepL the source language, but if you do not, it tries to understand what the language was. And so it's an optional parameter, but that's something really cool. For this first version, we will not be sending this, but if we do have time, I would like to add this. So let's see how the stream goes. So considering it's an optional parameter, we'll leave it for later. So you also need to send them the target language. So those are the languages they support. They have German, English for Britain and the United States, or just plain English for it's an unspecified variant for backwards compatibility. They have French, Italian, Japanese, Spanish, Dutch, Polish, Brazilian Portuguese, and Portugal Portuguese, because they're slightly different. Russian and Chinese. So they have a lot of
Well,
possibilities
quite
for
a lot of.
languages here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Uh,
means Oh,
Sure.
so how many required fields would we have? So we need the text that we want to translate.
Hmm.
And source language would be optional because it's going to auto detect. And we need to give the target language. So two required fields. And then we have an array of optional fields, right?
Exactly. So that's all we
Perfect.
need. So I have a small sample request here. I'm using Postman for this. So this is their endpoint slash translate. We have, so let's take a look here as it looks better. So the text I'm requesting the translation is hello world. I'm not saying the source language, so it will have to auto detect that. And the target language is German. And if we hit send, I have already set the credentials here. It says Hallo Welt. So
Hello, Veg.
translation
Perfect.
is working. Yeah. So we can change the text. For example, I like apples, and it says Ich mag Äpfel. So cool, it's working.
Awesome. Perfect. And you're using Postman for checking out the API. So is that something that
Exactly.
they provide, or is that something that you created?
No, they do not provide. Postman is a standalone tool. Many developers use this. You can simply create requests. So it's a very handy tool when you have to test external or third-party services APIs. It allows you to create those requests, and it's very complete. So we can change the parameters here. Just as an example, I can add more information. So if I wanted to use the source lang, I can easily use this here. And it's another information that was added as a query string. You can also, if you have a more complex request that you need to create, you can use the request body. You can see what cookies were transitioned. If you need cookies for any sort of request, you can also use them. You can check the headers, both sent and received. So it's a very handful tool, and I recommend everyone, even if you're not a developer, because like nowadays everything is about APIs, you need to have Postman. It's a very handy tool.
Perfect. And one last question is, so the API key, so we would be sending that as part of the query string.
Yeah, exactly. So this is one of the parameters here. It's called auth key. And when you use those double brackets in Postman, it means that it's a variable. So you can set variables. So if you have, for example, let's say a staging and a production environment, you can use different environments like I have in here. So I have, for example, no environment, DeepL, escritório, which is the word in Portuguese for office, local, production, sandbox. So you can have multiple environments, and in Postman, you can even have the URL as a parameter. So you can say, for example, DeepL URL, for example, and this is a variable. So you can set this
Nice.
as your environment variable and also use it. So that's very handy.
Nice. And we can also do that with the HTTP request node in n8n. Maybe a set node
Sure.
for the variables and HTTP request node.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like if you want to build it in n8n, like nowadays, like currently we don't have this node, you can easily create those requests manually. Sure.
Awesome.
So
And I see a
like
comment
everything,
from, yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
go on.
I see a comment from somebody who mentioned like turns out um, DeepL added a lot of integrations today that that are not in the list yet. So that's great to hear as well.
Mhm. Yeah, so just like to have a look, they also have the translating documents information here. So what we would need is pretty similar. You need to send the source language about the document that you're providing. This is also optional. The target language, this one is required. So what language you want to translate to. The authorization key, the same one that we're using here, like their API key. You can send a file, and I think you can send multiple files, but I'm not sure. And the file name is also optional, just like the name of the uploaded file can be used as an alternative to include the file name in the file parts content disposition. Yeah, that's a little bit more technical. So you can send the file name here instead of part of the request body.
Got it. Perfect. So DeepL is the tool for us that we're gonna create a node for today. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we get started with creating a node now?
Okay, let's get started. Let's go to the good parts. So first things first, you need to have the development environment set up. So I already have this right now, so we don't spend a lot of time doing this. But the basic steps are you need to have a GitHub account, or maybe at least have the Git client installed on your machine so you can clone the repository. So I'm not going through all of this, like just giving you some very overview about this. You need to clone the repository on your machine, and there's a little bit of setup. n8n was written in JavaScript, so in order to run JavaScript code on your machine, you need to have Node installed. So you need to install Node. It's pretty easy to install usually. So once you have Node installed, you need to install n8n's dependencies, because n8n relies on other codes to work. So you need to install those dependencies so that n8n works, because it's a huge software. Nobody writes software from scratch, like everything. So we use some third-party libraries to help on this. And this is not so hard, but I will not be spending so much time on here. There's a very cool link on our website. So if you go to docs.n8n.io, I think, Tanay, I don't know if you have a link for this to our users.
I have it right now.
Awesome. So like here in the reference page, you can see the contribution parts and the setup. Exactly, well, the link you sent. So you have like a contribution setting page where users can know and understand like how to get started, what are the first steps. You can also see all this information here in our GitHub. So there's a contributing section. Let me just find it. You have the documentation here. And if you check the contributing file here, you have all the instructions that I mentioned. So basically how to download the repository, what you need to install, like you need Python, you need some more information, you need to install Lerna, which is our package manager inside n8n. So code the repository, install the dependencies, build the project, and then start. So I already did all that, so we don't spend a lot of time on this. And we already have n8n running here. So the last command that I run is npm run start, which is this step. And it says n8n is ready on port 5678. So if I head to my browser and open localhost 5678, we have n8n's home screen.
Perfect.
Cool.
So now we have the editor UI here. Awesome.
Exactly. So this is known as the editor, where we start creating the workflows. So for users that never played with n8n before, this is the way you can run it on your machine. Like there's actually even an easier way to run it on your machine. But the way you start creating stuff is that you can easily click either this plus, or you can drag from this connection and add new nodes. So let's say I want Google Translate, so I can test something. You can create the Google Translate node. You would need the credentials, so you can see the documentations here, and how do you authenticate to the service. And pretty similar to what we will be doing today is resource, we'll be using language, operation will be to translate text. So we want to translate something, and I can simply say hello world and translate to English. It just did not autocomplete yet because I did not add credentials. I don't have those right now. But this is the way we start a workflow. We just add the necessary information, and n8n always tells you what is missing. So it's pretty easy to set up, and there's always the documentation to help you.
It's really cool. So the node that we create would also look something like that.
Exactly.
Right?
So it will be another one on this list of nodes that we already have. So the list is pretty big. We always have people adding new nodes. We have a lot of contributors. So yeah, this list is ever increasing, and that's awesome.
That's true. And there's one third way to create a new node, to add a new node to the canvas, and that is pressing the tab button. So there's a couple of keyboard shortcuts. Yeah. I learned that recently as well.
I did not know that one. Aha! Nice. Okay, cool. Learning new things every day.
Yeah. So I'll share a link for that. So we have a page in the documentation as well for keyboard shortcuts for n8n. So
Sure.
If you prefer using the keyboard, that's the page to go to.
Nice. I didn't know that one. Yeah, I knew a few of the shortcuts. Like if I if I press Control or Command O for open, it brings you this modal where you can search for workflows
Okay,
that you
that I
have.
didn't use before.
Ah, aha, taught you
Awesome.
this one. Cool. So, well, okay, so this is the basic n8n structure, how it works, and let's get into the code. Why not? Right?
Let's do it.
Okay, so once I'm using Visual Studio Code for code editing, and the basic code structure for n8n,
Can we
it's
zoom in
going,
a bit?
sure, yes, is it better?
Um,
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it
can
changed.
you, really? Let me see, how can I do this? Because in my
I
screen
think
is,
with Command and plus.
that's what I did. It didn't seem to change to you. You can see my Visual Studio screen, right?
I can, yeah.
Yeah, so I just zoomed in here. It's kind of big at the moment to me, but
Okay,
it's
yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah. Now it does seem a bit bigger. Yeah.
okay, cool.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Folks, if you have any difficulties reading by any chance, let us know in the chats and we can rectify that quickly.
Sure, yeah.
Go ahead, Omar. Thank you.
Okay, so well, n8n was divided into smaller packages so that it's easier to maintain. So this is exactly what you'll find when you clone the repository. You see the packages folder, and this is the one that's like the most important, where the heart of everything lies. You have the CLI command. It's the one that's like the roots of n8n. This is how everything starts. So what we did here when we ran n8n start, npm run start actually, we used one of the commands that is described in this CLI package. The core is where everything that happens under the hood is, like the workflows executions, the way information is being saved, the way n8n manages credentials. Like the heart of n8n is inside the core package. The editor UI is the interface we interact with. So all the interface that we see here is here in the editor UI package. So you have like all our Vue.js files, because this editor was built using Vue.js, CSS files, all of this you can find here. The nodes development is a group of, it's a bunch of tools that help you build new nodes, but we won't be using this today. We'll be like using the most simple way to build nodes. The workflow package is the one that helps all things work together, because like once you have the bare bones, which are in the core package, you have the workflows that run on top of it. And the last one, the nodes base, which are all the nodes that we have. And this is where we'll be interacting now. You can see, like, especially we'll be working with two folders, the credentials and the nodes. So these are the ones that are really relevant to us. If you open the node, you see that the list is huge because it's exactly this list. Like all nodes in here, and actually those ones too, like the triggers, they're all here. So this is where we'll be interacting most. So
Perfect. And how
any
long does it
questions?
take? Yeah, like feel free to enter your questions in the chat. Love to hear what you're thinking about. And Omar, I had a question for you. How long does it take typically to create a new node? Or what
Um,
factors rather does it depend on?
yeah, like there are a few. That's a very cool question, because for a basic node like DeepL we'll be creating now, I think that up to an hour we can create a node, maybe less, I'm not sure. But that's because we're using like only one operation, we're only translating text. But let's say if you're like working with Trello, where you have to manage boards and cards and people and labels and tags, I don't know, you name it. So
Yeah,
that takes definitely longer. So maybe a day, 2 days, I don't know, because you have to check all the operations, test them, because like, here for DeepL, we're using just one endpoint, one request. So that should be pretty easy, like maybe an hour, I'd say.
got it, got it. So depends on the scope of the API. Also, I guess on
Exactly.
the documentation of the API, right?
Exactly. Like how complex it is to make those requests. So if it's a REST API, it's a lot simpler. But if you have a SOAP protocol, that's way more complex, like a lot more verbose information that you have to add. So it really adds more complexity and definitely will take longer to develop.
Yeah, makes sense.
So let's start by checking, like, I don't want to start from the scratch because, well, I don't even know every single part of it. So I'll start from the Google Translate node because it's one that already exists. So maybe I'll start with this file. So I'll copy this file
Oh
and
no,
I'll
are you
create.
reviewing my code on a live stream?
No, don't feel pressed.
No pressure.
Yeah, so
Which
cool.
makes a lot of sense because we probably have similarities in terms of, a text that we have to ask for, the target language that we ask for.
Exactly. So they're pretty similar in the way that they work. So why not use something similar? And that's something I always say, like when people ask us, oh, how do I start creating a node? We'll point them to a file because I'll be honest, it's pretty self-explanatory the way the nodes work in n8n, and we'll just browse it through it real quickly because what we have here, it's a bunch of imports. Those actually say to JavaScript, hey, I need to understand some things in your structure, how you work. So please let me use those parts of code that you already have. So this is what the import does. And this is just an interface that we won't be using. So we can skip that for now. And you have the class, the main class actually. This one is called Google Translate. We'll call it DeepL. And that's pretty much what we need to implement. Mm-hmm. So you have a description block. And I'll just collapse it real quickly just to show how small it is. So I'll collapse the description block. You have, this is optional for like loading things from the third-party service. We will be using this to get DeepL's supported languages.
Oh, so that's an endpoint that you'll be requesting to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forgot to mention this one. So that's something I saw yesterday. They have like listing supported languages. Yeah, like /languages, you can get the supported languages. So this is like for loading from DeepL, the language they support, and the execute function, which is what's going to happen once this node has to execute. And if I collapse this, it's over. Like that's really it. And like this one is optional. And for the description, it's just like a bunch of variables that we're going to use. So for example, I'll rename this class to DeepL. This interface is not being used anywhere, and it's related to Google. So I don't need this here. I can remove this. This block doesn't exist here. So right now, because I don't have the generic functions file yet, so I'll just comment this. Mm-hmm. I will also rename this file because it's not Google. So let me just quickly rename to deepl.node.ts. This is the name we want. And now we'll start changing the information here. So display name, DeepL, name, DeepL. This is like an internal name, like a code to identify this node. So it can be all lowercase, but just to like, it was previously Google Translate, so let's use DeepL with the with the capital L. We need a logo, an icon too, and I have already prepared this because.
Where did you get it from?
There is one hint. I think you told us. Usually, and that's an awesome hint, really. Usually, those websites, like all websites, I have to open a incognito window because being logged in, they don't let me use the homepage. So here on their main website, they have the press information. And the coolest thing about the press information is that they have here their logos. So you can easily get this one. I just resized it. So I cropped it because I only want the logo, and I resized it to 60 by 60 because this is the size that we want. And there you go, an easy way to get a logo. So instead of just Googling that and trying to get an image, that's a very easy way to get this one. So let me see where I left this file. It's here. We found it. So This is the logo, projects. Let me just put it in this right place, n8n, packages, node space, nodes, DeepL. Let me see where it is. Here. Okay, let me paste this file. Cool. So now we have the logo here, deepl.png, good. Translate data using DeepL. So operation and resource. The subtitle is what shows on your node, under your node actually. So let's say I use Agile CRM. So this is the resource. The resource is contact. The operation is get. So you see, it's showing only get here, but in our case, we'll be displaying contact, column, and get.
Mm-hmm.
So resource, operation, and resource, name, DeepL. The color. So how do we get their color? Another small hack. We'll be checking their own API here. And considering I don't know exactly the color they should be using, but just like we can change that later. But there's an easy trick. You just go to anywhere to choose the color. I just opened the developer console. It's usually the F12 key, or in Windows, it's Control-Shift-C for copy. And just go to anything that has a color, and I'll just click their logo, and voila, I have their color.
Awesome.
Ta-da. Okay, so should be looking good, I hope. Okay, for credentials, we'll be using the DeepL credential. It is required, but the authentication will not be a service account. This is the type of authentication that we'll be using. In this case, it's an API key, so I'll use this. And there's only one method, so I don't have another one. It's only one possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for
and the other one is for which may be offer API key and OAuth, or like multiple ways to authenticate.
Exactly.
Right?
Like if you have multiple ways to authenticate a service, you can add them all here. We'll be using only one, so it's only API key. For authentication, okay, we have only one option, which is API key. So this is the way it's going to be presented to our user. Mm-hmm. So, oops, API key. So we can remove this block. Okay, the default needs to be one of the options, so it's always also going to be API key. Resource. We can use the same name for now. So resource is going to be language, which is the operation we're performing. The operation will be translate. So just the same as the Google Translate node. We won't be changing that right now. We can change that in the future, but for now, just leave it like this. And there is the text that needs to be translated. So it's one of the fields. Just let me go back real quick. This is what the node needs as information in order to run. So just to recap what we're doing now, I'm telling that this node requires credentials to authenticate to the DeepL API, and I'm saying that this node also needs the text. So those are actually the fields for the node. So I forgot to mention that, so just to make clear what we're doing now. Okay. So we have the text that's going to be translated, and it will only be displayed when, so this is something cool about n8n, the fields can have conditions. So I'm only displaying the field text when the operation is translated. So you can use those conditions to show and hide fields whenever needed. And there's also the translate.
Yeah, we can also actually add resources there. So in case for nodes like HLCRM, for instance, you might have a resource as company and contacts, and both of them might have a get operation. So in that case, you can specify the operation and the resource, so the appropriate one shows up.
Exactly. Like, for example, in another iteration for this node, the operation could be, like, let's say the resource could be file, for example, and the operation would be upload, for example. So we can upload a file for translation for DeepL, So this is the way we can create those. It's a standard in n8n to always use those names like resource and operations, always when possible. So a resource is a contact, a company, a customer, something like this. And the operation is create, delete, update, things like that. So this is what we'll be doing. Cool. So we need the text. So no changes here. The language we'll be translating to. And this is one cool thing. Considering that DeepL provides an endpoint to list to get the list of available languages, we'll be using that too. And so you can specify and tell n8n, hey, query DeepL's API and get the list of languages so we can create a select with the correct options always. So we'll be using this.
The dropdown would be populated by the result of the API endpoint.
Exactly. So we don't have to hard code this. It is really cool. So the language to use for translations. So the description is, let's just review this, the language to use for translation of the input text, set to one of the language codes listed in this place. So no, we'll have to update this a little bit. So
and you can use HTML in there as
well. Yeah, exactly. You can use HTML. Like if you have a big tooltip, a long text, you can use like bold, italic to help our users understand what they have to do here. So the language to use for translation of the input text. Yes, so this is the only thing we need actually in this case. So remember that here it says load options method is get languages. And this is exactly the one that is declared here. So you have inside this methods variable, you have the load options attribute and the get languages function. This is the one we'll be implementing to get the list of supported languages from DeepL. Okay, so right now, like this is something I'll completely ignore for now, and also like here, the execute is something I'm not gonna use right now because we need the credential file. Like we added this information up here about the API key, and that's something we need to make sure that works. So let's go again to, I have already did a research yesterday, and I saw that the Zoom credentials is very similar because all they need is a JWT token. So it's very similar to what we want. So what I'll be doing is like copy paste this file again. One little difference, the DeepL node file, as we can see here in the breadcrumbs, the DeepL node.ts file is inside the DeepL folder in the nodes folder. And that's very important. So the node is located here, but the credentials are located in the credentials folder. So credentials and nodes are sibling folders, okay? So, right, let's just save as, what did I do? Oh, yeah, DeepL.credentials.ts. So just create another file of the same name, DeepL API. Actually, we should probably rename this to DeepL API.credentials. Let's do this. Oops, not delete, it's rename. Okay, DeepL API.credentials.ts. Okay, so
looking at the other names of the files, should we probably have P and I in lowercase?
Sorry?
For the class name. For the class name, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Let me just fix this. Yes, because all files are like this, so let's keep the same standards. Good point, thank you. Okay, so the name that we have used here, DeepL API, is the same one that needs to be here. So I just used DeepL first, so that's a small correction. I'll use the same name, DeepL API, in the credentials block, right? Okay, so this is, I think this is what we need. Let's just see. So here we'll say the name, update the name to DeepL API, DeepL. Actually, I think this is the one that goes to the documentation page. So it's what is displayed here. Do you know, okay, so this one, for example, for Agile CRM, they're using camel case. So I'll be using DeepL, like the capital L. So we have to choose the same namings in the documentations. Display name API key, name API key, and that's all we need actually. Cool. Okay, so this is the credentials file. So far what we did was we created two files, the node file and the credentials file. And also I added the image here. So those are three files actually that we added to our project. Now, n8n is already running. It's running already, so I have to stop n8n. I need to build this project. Actually, before building, I created those new files, but n8n doesn't really know why I created them. So n8n is probably just ignoring those files when we build the project again. In order to let n8n know about those files that I created, I need to link them so that n8n loads this information when it starts. A lot of information, but bottom line is I need to add this information to the package.json file inside the nodes base directory. So you see we have plenty of package.json files. This is the one that we want to interact with. This is a pretty long file.
This is on the same level as the nodes folder and the credentials folder, right?
Exactly. So yeah, just, yeah, it is. So we have to add the credentials here. So we have to use the file name. So let me just scroll down. They are all in order. So you just add it in the place it has to be. So DeepL API. Just make sure that the naming is correct. DeepL API.credentials. One important thing to note is that in here, we're using JS and not TS because the file we're editing is TS file. In the package.json, we're using the JS file because it will be built into JavaScript. So we add the credentials here, and then we scroll down a little bit more, and we have another list of nodes. So the upper list is for the credentials, and the lower list is for the nodes. And then same thing, like we just find a place where it has to be, like here. Okay. And add the correct information. So DeepL.
And you're adding these alphabetically.
Exactly. They have to be ordered alphabetically. So this is the name, deepl.node.js in this case. The folder name is deepl. Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's what we need. So we created three files, the node, credentials, and the logo. And we changed the package.json file. Now it's time to npm run build, and hopefully everything should work.
Perfect.
Let's cross fingers now.
So while it builds, I have a question for you, Omar. What's your favorite node in n8n?
My favorite node, the one I use the most is the function node. It's so versatile. I really like the way that you get all the information. So all the input information is sent to you. And you can change the data as you need. So you can iterate through all the data that you have received. You can change it and pass it forward, pass it on to the next nodes by changing all information. And one thing I use it a lot is that during development, I sometimes need to n8n to wait a little bit because I want to test something. And you need like 2 or 3 seconds would be enough, but you need to check something happening before conclusion. And the function node allows you to do this, like small sleep. So it allows n8n to halt for a little bit the execution and then come back without consuming resources. So that's something I really like. So this is the node I've been using the most. I know, like, maybe not the best answer because you would expect me to say, hell, it's Gmail. Like, because this node is like, it's so much about the tooling it provides me, but it's one I use a lot. Like, it's during development and even for my own information, whenever users from our community ask questions like, hey, I have this information, it's in a very different format, and I would like to change it because I want it to look like that. So how can I do this? And the cool thing is that the answer, most of the times, would be in the function node because you can really change all the information that you want. You can filter out information, and that's really amazing. Cool. Okay, so yeah, we had a few compilation errors, and that's because I left some information that wasn't supposed to be there. So let's go back to the code, and before going to the code, let's see what the errors we had. Like, cannot find the name Google API request. Yeah, it cannot find because we're working in the DeepL node. There's no Google API request. That's because I have left some things behind that we need to remove. Actually, we need to change. So let's go down a little bit in the source code. Okay, so this is the one, like Google API request. It's saying that it's wrong. Why is that? Because it's a function that was not defined. So yeah, we'll define this function now. Let me just go back to the Google Translate node real quick. We have a standard of using a generic functions file that contains helpers for the node. So I'll copy this file and put it side by side to the node. So I'll add this file here. So generic functions, good. What do we need here? Instead of Google API request, I'll say DeepL API request. So this is the function that we'll be using. And let's start working with this file, shall we? Because in the end, we did not build the node yet, but we have good news because if we get this error, it means that n8n was able to see the file, it loaded it, it tried to build it. So the part that we changed in the package.json file was a success. So it worked fine. So we can move forward, even though we did not see the node yet. We'll see it in a moment. I know everyone wants to see me click the tab button and see the node on the list. We'll have that in a moment.
Perfect.
So, okay, we need the authentication. And instead of service account here, remember that we changed this one for API key. So that's what we want, authentication method. This is actually like saying, hey, I need a parameter for this node. I need the authentication parameter. The 0 means for the first position, because if we have multiple input data, we can have different information for every line. And this is the standard value. Like if you have nothing, like if there is nothing provided, this is the default that I want. We will be using this application JSON, all the information that came from the request, like the method to be called get, post, delete, the
Nope, it seems we have lost Omar.
so we just removed this, and we never
Oh,
used the trailing slash in this case. So because this is something that we expect you to provide in here. So just like in this example, it always starts with a slash. So we'll be using like this. Make sense?
Omar, I think you dropped out for a sec. Would you mind
Oh,
repeating the last bit?
sure. Yeah. So this is how we're calling the DeepL API. So this function is the one that actually doing the hard part of actually connecting and making this request. And it receives a few parameters, some context about the execution. I'll just skip that because like it's internal n8n stuff. It provides helpers to us. The method that we'll be calling, get, post, delete, for example. The resource, this is pretty much the URL we'll be calling. So in this case, it will be like /translate. The body, if you have a request body, for example, a JSON that you want to send with your request. The query string information, in this case, this is the one that the information we'll be using, like we want to use anybody for this case. If you want to override the full URL, you can send this and any possible header. So this is pretty much what it receives. And this is how we're going to work with it. So we create an options object with all the information that we'll be using for this request specifically. So headers, for example, will be content type application JSON, the method that we'll be calling, the request body, the query string that was provided to us, URI that we'll be calling. So in this case, we're using api.deepl.com/v2, and we do not add the trailing slash here because you provide this when you call the function. And we are saying that JSON is true because everything we're sending and receiving can be treated as JSON objects. Make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, so what we have here, we're checking if the headers keys exist, like if it has any value. If not, we are removing this. Like actually, I'm sorry. We're checking if the headers that were sent to the function contain any information. And if they do, we are merging those headers to the ones that we already have here. Same thing for the body. So actually, like, there is no body here. So if there is no, if the body is empty, we just delete this information because it's not needed. And there's the authentication part. We only have one method, which is API key. But anyway, we're still going to use this method because we have to
Oh no. Okay. So it seems Omar's system is frozen again. So we're gonna wait for a bit for him to come back. And while we do that, if you have any questions, please feel free to share them in the chat. We'd be really happy to answer. And another thing I'd love to know is what is your favorite node in n8n? And Omar mentioned function nodes, so we have some documentation on that as well and how the internal data structure looks like. It's a very versatile node. You can use JavaScript in it to model the data. So let's say if you're getting data in an array format or a format that it should be different as how you want to show it. So you can use the function node to transform the data into something that is suitable for your specific needs. Um, for me, I think it's a tough question. Like I've been working with a lot of nodes recently. Probably it is the HTTP request node that we talked about really briefly at the beginning of this live stream. And what was interesting about it for me is if there is a service for which there isn't a node in n8n, so let's say DeepL, and let's say you do not know how to write TypeScript or JavaScript, and you still want to be able to use it from within your workflow, what you can do is you can use it, you can enter the API URL, you can add the API key as either expressions in n8n or you can hard code it as well. It supports a couple of different authentication types like API key or OAuth and so on. And you can still make queries to that endpoint and get data from it. So we have been like writing to a lot of different APIs because the things that I'm working on require calls to a lot of different APIs, and a lot of times it doesn't make sense to write a node for them. One of the examples is CocktailDB API, and I like using it for demos because it gives data of random cocktails, it gives recipes, it gives like what kind of ingredients it has. Is it alcoholic? Is it non-alcoholic? It also gives a nice thumbnail, and yeah, I can call it using the HTTP request node. And yeah, you can then use the data, which comes in JSON format again, and share it forward. Okay, so let's wait for a few minutes for Omar to join in. And while he joins, I am curious to know if you have any questions till now. Any questions about the structure? And I see Omar joined in, so I'm
Okay.
gonna add him in. Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
just asking if people have any questions.
Cool. I'm sorry, I had disconnection issues. I think I was talking for the last 5 minutes, probably alone.
Oh no,
I
no
did.
worries.
I don't know how
Yeah.
long I was offline.
Yeah, I think the last thing we saw was you were explaining about the headers and like the body and so on that we are sending with the
Ah,
generic functions.
okay, cool. So I'll be sharing my screen again. And okay, so can you
Perfect.
people see my screen?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So what we did in this file, so just quick recap, we created this function called DeepL API request, which is the one that will be doing the real talk to DeepL API. We set up a few things: the headers, the method, the request method, the request body, if you have like a JSON information that needs to be sent, the query string, for example, the ones that we used here on Postman. This is all query string because of this question mark. URI that we'll be calling, and just telling our library that everything is JSON. So the input and the output are JSON information. And well, there's a bit more code here. If we're actually checking if the headers were sent and merging those to the existing ones. The body is also being used here, the request body. So if you have any information, we are using it. Otherwise, we just remove it from the object. We get the authentication. So I don't know if you people saw me doing this, but I have already changed those.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and well, we basically have a file that should be working fine now. Those dependencies are not being used, so we can remove those. And let me just get back here real quick, and let's uncomment those. So we have the generic functions, but instead of Google API request, we'll use this other one. So I just changed all at once. So this should be building now, because now we have used all the correct naming for variables. So let's give it a try.
Perfect. And on an average, like how long does it take for a build to complete?
Well, actually, my laptop is taking a lot longer than usual. It's probably tired. This laptop's with me for over 4 years.
The live stream.
Yeah, maybe, but like this laptop is getting really old and tired. But on my desktop computer, which is an okay computer, it's not super high end, it usually takes about 15 to 30 or 20 seconds, something like this. Like hardly more than a minute. Even if my computer is really busy, like I have a bunch of tabs open and stuff running on the background, it's usually really quick. And another tip that you can use, there's another command that you can use. Instead of npm run build, we have to use build for the first times because we have to get the basic files working so that n8n says, okay, I have built once. But after you did this, you can use the npm run watch, and npm will be checking files for changes and rebuilding that. So it's a lot faster because you don't have to rebuild the project always. So what you have to do is to restart the n8n process. So during development, it saves a lot of time to you.
Nice, that's very handy.
Yeah, we'll be using this in a moment. Like once we get this first build working, we can try using the watch command and you can see it in action.
That's really cool.
So
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just giving some background, why we're doing this. It's because I don't know if we said this on the live. I don't think so. Tomorrow we'll be having a Hack Nation Day on n8n.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying as well. So yeah, we do
Cool.
internal hackathons on automation-related topics, and I think the last one we had was in December, I believe. And now we have it tomorrow. And what we do is we usually go one of two ways. So we use n8n to either build a new product or something that solves a problem, or we try to automate some internal business process with it. And as fate would have it, Omar and I were teamed up for this time. And we've been talking a lot about internal processes, but one of the things that we hadn't really in common was, we are both new to Germany. We've been trying to learn German. And I've been doing a lot of different trying in terms of apps and so on. I think one of the things that we both felt was common was, we lack context of information. You can read so much. Oh, Tanay went to school. Tanay is 5 years old. That kind of content. So we've been thinking about how can we get relevant content and reinforce our learning during working as well. So we've been looking to do some chat ops and language learning. So for that purpose, we are building the DeepL node.
Exactly. So our goal is to create a node because, well, first, it's cool. Creating new nodes is always cool and challenging. You always learn new things. And it's another translation option. And the cool thing is that when using DeepL, let me just open a new tab here, an incognito tab while my computer is starting the watch command. So while we were talking, I just ran the npm run start because we successfully built the project. Hooray! So no more errors
Awesome.
while building. And I also ran the npm run watch. So what we have now is that this other tab of my terminal is watching for file changes. So whenever I make any change to those files, it's automatically building. And all I have to do is restart this process, which is a lot quicker. Like, it's a lot faster than restarting everything. There's also an option like npm run dev, but let's just leave it for another day. That's too much. So the cool thing about this website, for example, is the hello world thing, for example. You can click the words and see, like, it got lots of possibilities for translations. And that's the cool thing, that uses machine learning under the hood. So if someone knows a little bit about it, and people will be correcting the translations made, it improves over time, and the translations get better always. So that's something I find really cool about this.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's see it in action. DeepL. Oh my God, it's here.
It's
Okay.
here.
Let's see how it's working. So create new API. Okay, I will need to add the credentials here. So
Shall I
I'll
take care
get
of the
my
stream?
screen. Yeah, just a second while I add the
Okay.
credentials here.
Let me
So
know
it's
when you're
something.
ready. Yeah.
Sure, it takes just a second. All right, it's safe. Okay, cool. We can get back online.
Perfect.
So let's see what's happening now. The translate to did not work. So let's see if we have anything in the terminal. And yes, we do have some information here. So let's see what happened here when we tried to get. So no does not have credentials. It said 404 undefined. So let's see why. Because we were trying to get the list of supported languages here. But remember that we did not change this code. We simply ignored it. And there we go. Like, this one doesn't exist on DeepL. So their API says that in order to get the list of supported languages, you have to call the, which one is this? Oh, it's not this URL. It's here. Oh, this is the usage, and here, languages. So this is the one that we'll use. So this is probably the reason that the request has failed. So once I do this, if you see, like, at my clock, it's 5:48, it has already built the project. So all you have to do is simply Control-C here and just restart it. So it's a lot faster than building the whole project from scratch. You just have to restart it real quick. It takes like 5 or 10 seconds to do that instead of rebuilding everything. So it works a lot better. So here we are. Let me just refresh my screen real quick and see how it goes. So here, DeepL, the credentials are already here, and not yet. Why does it happen? Let's see. And here, it's still returning 404. What did I do wrong? HTTPS api.deepl.com/language. So let's try this one here and see if it's right.
Is it languages?
Maybe. Still not found. What's happening? Did I get the wrong URL? That's also a possibility. Oh, you have to send type equals target. Still 404. Language. Oh yeah, it's languages and type equals target. So this is the one. All right, so let's fix this. So languages, and we have to send another variable here. So what we did is that we have sent the method as a get, the resource s/languages. The body is going to be empty, so we just use an empty object here, and we need to send the query string here. So we'll be using type equals target. Aha, so this should be it. And let's see what happens. It should be working now. Oh, we're almost out of time because I said 1 hour. Gotta make it really, gotta hurry a little bit more so we can finish in our expected time.
Yeah.
Let's go and then, all right, just gonna refresh this one real quick. And here, DeepL, okay, and the credential. Oops, did not work. Why didn't, oh, because now the information that I'm reading is invalid. So in here,
It's probably
it
still
says,
referring to Google Translates how it returns information, right?
exactly. So you
Okay.
can simply use languages here as the result. So languages will be this array of information. And what we want is for each language here on this array, the name will be .name, and the value will be language. Exactly. So this is language here. Cool. So this should work now. All right.
Okay, keeping the fingers crossed to all the
The
gods
cool
of
thing is
live
that,
demo.
oh yeah, we're going one step at a time, but we're making progress for each step. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So let me just save this one so I can easily refresh this one and see it working fine.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Da-da-da, there we go. So let's say
Oh.
German and hello world. Okay, so if we click it, the execute, it's still not going to work properly because we did not implement the execute function. So let's not waste time and work on it already. So what we do here is that we're going to fix like language is the same thing that was used. So the resource is language and the operation is translate. So these won't change. We're getting the text parameter. Awesome. We're getting the translate to, which is the language we want to translate to. Instead of post, I'll be using get in here. And let me just check the other one that we used here previously, like this request. So we'll be using /translate.
Right.
So it's a /translate. And let me see, call. This is the body. So the body is something that we won't be using because we're sending all information as query string. And I'll use source lang. So source lang is translate to. And we're using text. Oh, it's just text equals to text. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
And then let's see the results for this one because this is very important. There is a translations property. So we want the resource dot translations. The first one is an array, and we only want the first option here. So it's translations index 0. So this is what we want. So let's just restart n8n real quick and see if it works. Should be working now, I think. Let's see. Fingers crossed always.
Fingers crossed.
All right. So let's just save this one and let's execute this. Let's just check the terminal if there is anything here. Okay. Google Translate error response, value for target length not supported. So let's see what we did here. One thing that I like doing is that I need to debug what's happening in this options object here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to console.log options so that we don't expose our API key. But this is probably it. Let's just check if I made any mistake on typo while it restarts, but I don't think so. Source lang equals to translate to. Okay, maybe I'm using the wrong name here. Let me just make sure that this is correct. So it's language. Yeah, seems to be right. Okay, let's see now. So let's change to German. I just changed to make sure that n8n is using the correct names. And let's see now.
You should also probably remove the two uppercase, right?
But the two
Oh, it
uppercase
shouldn't
thing,
affect it.
yeah, because actually the two uppercase thing is in the name, not the value. But
Yeah.
now that we added this to our terminal, we can see what was used here. So type target is being used. So this one is to get the, oh, I'm using source length and not target length. But this
Ah,
is what I did wrong. So it's
because we
here.
were showcasing how to add additional parameters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's it. There we go. Should work fine now because that's one thing that I like, adding those console log messages because they really help you. So you can go back to the terminal and see what's happening under the hood, and you can easily diagnose anything that's happening that is weird. So let me just refresh this one real quick just to make sure that we have an updated version. Okay, and should work fine now. Let's see. There we go. So
Hello,
it says that it
Welt.
detected short language in English and it translated to German. And let's try like Japanese. Do you know Japanese?
Unfortunately, not.
Me neither, but let's see what comes out. Oh yeah, I think it works. I hope so. It seems like hello
It's
world to me
cool.
in Japanese. Okay, so like we made it like in time.
It's perfect.
They're
Yeah.
like there are next steps here naturally, like we can add this like source language to hint DeepL about it. It's not so hard to do. Usually in n8n, in order to reduce the complexity for users that are using the node for the first time, we put those additional fields like as additional options. Let me see if this one has. Yeah, like additional fields. So we can add like source language in this drop-down list for our DeepL node, and that would be helpful. There's also another improvement that we could make. For example, um, uh, let me just make another translation here. Let me just get any translation here. DeepL supports that we send multiple sentences at once. So like, I like apples and text equals hello world, for example. So we can send text twice and it will translate them correctly. So it says, ich mag Äpfel and hello Welt. So those are optimizations that we could do, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible so people can easily replicate this, but there's always room for improvement. And well, maybe in the next session we could do this.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll stop sharing my screen and let's see what happens.
Oh, seems like we have lost Omar again. Okay, let's. Oh, Omar, are you still there?
Oh,
Okay, I have removed your
yeah, I
screen.
am. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly fine. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, Omar. This was great, and like great to see the DeepL node come to life that we can finally use in our project tomorrow. And I think we gotta make that
Definitely.
another live stream where we can then share what we built during the hackmation tomorrow, our second hackmation.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It was fun coding, really. As you can see, like I know how DeepL API works, but building this node was like we did this live, and it's very simple and very easy to create. You just need naturally some programming skills, but even if you're not like proficient in programming, if you know how to make API calls, you can easily copy and paste information. Maybe it's going to take a little bit longer, but definitely you can easily create nodes for n8n.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Omar and I can stay back for maybe 3 minutes. So, in case you have any questions, it would be great if you could drop them in the chat and we can then address them for you. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so also like I must say that it comes with a warning. Creating nodes for n8n is very addictive. Next time, like now what happened, like after I created my first nodes, every time I see a cool API or a cool product, first thing that comes to my mind is, oh my God, how do I find the access key and so on and create a node for it on n8n? So it's a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Like every product I sign up or every product I see, I always check, oh, do they have an APN? Can we create a
Yeah.
node or something like this? It's really addicting. That was really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, like yesterday we created our first webinar. So in case you are interested in checking that out, it's on YouTube, our YouTube channel. And we use a platform called Demio. And the cool thing about it, it has APIs. So we love APIs. So we've been using for automating a lot of things in our webinar, the Demio node as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Okay, so
Awesome.
in case we don't have any questions now, I will drop a link in the chat to our community. So we have a really active community at community.n8n.io. So if you have any questions, if you're building your first node or maybe your nth node, feel free to join in, say hi, and ask any questions. Like we'll get back to you very soon. And
Yeah.
thank you so
Uh,
much, Omar, for joining us today.
no problem. Thank you for inviting me. It was really pleasant to build this node with you and share this with our users. And just like Tanai said, check our community forums. We have really active and lovely people there, always have willing to help. It's a really good environment.
Yeah, and we're all learners there, so don't hesitate to ask any questions because
Definitely.
if something is unclear, it's either like we have to make improvements to the product or to the documentation. So don't worry, ask away any questions that you might have.
Yeah, maybe I can solve something using the function node to help you. It will be a
Totally.
pleasure.
Yeah. All right then. Thank you so much all for attending, and we hope that you found this useful. And we will upload this on our YouTube channel after this as well. So have a nice rest of your day. Thank you so much, and bye.
Bye.